Did you know the largest source of water pollution today is contaminated rain and stormwater? As rain lands on our rooftops, lawns, and pavement, the water picks up whatever debris and pollutants may reside there. Pesticides, animal waste, salts, oil, litter. This stormwater runoff flows into storm drains, where it travels through underground pipes that in most communities feed directly into rivers and lakes. In Grand Rapids, it takes just 15 to 30 minutes for runoff from your driveway to reach the Grand River. And from there, it's on to Lake Michigan, with all the pollutants it picked up along the way. But it doesn't have to be this way. When rain and stormwater are allowed to drain into the ground, the earth is able to filter out most pollutants naturally. By the time it does reach rivers and lakes, it's not only cleaner, it is cooler and there's less of it. That's better for the fish, better for the invertebrates that fish eat, and better for the plants that live in and along the water. It is also better for humans and property, as flooding and related problems are less likely. And it costs a lot to create and maintain the cement stormwater infrastructure. So any steps to address water pollution in our community will make better use of our public funds. The key to cleaner and healthier water and more sustainable communities is to capture rain where it falls by helping it drain into the ground as nature intended. We can do this through things like rain barrels, rain gardens, porous pavement, or by just limiting the amount of dense and impenetrable surfaces in our community. More green space, less asphalt and pavement. Learn more at 15theriver.org.
A rain garden is a depressed area in the landscape designed to hold rainwater and allow it to seep back into the soil. Now this has a number of wonderful benefits, mainly by keeping water on site. We're allowing it to be used by the trees, shrubs, and other plants in our landscape rather than flowing off away from our garden. And also we can use the rain garden to direct water in the landscape, which can help reduce erosion problems. Now, rain gardens also affect the larger water system by keeping rainwater on site and releasing less into our streams and creeks. Now this can have wonderful impacts on the quality and quantity. By reducing the amount of water flowing into our streams and creeks, we're going to have less sediment, less pollutants, and a lower volume of water flowing into our creeks and streams, which will reduce flooding. Joining me now is Kevin Gustafson with Project Blue Thumb, and Kevin's going to help me design a rain garden here in a residential landscape. So to get started, we need to locate this rain garden. And what are some of the parameters we want to think about in selecting a site?
Well, when it rains on your landscape, look to see where water is flowing on the landscape, and think about where you could possibly trap that water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's going to be a natural flow of low spots where the water's moving, and we can take advantage of those. Mm-hmm. What about downspouts and stuff? Are those going to come into play?
Yes, definitely. So one of the places where water often comes, you have a nice area on top of your roof that collects water and sends it to the downspout, and where water comes off the downspout, that's where you can see streams of water where you can start to collect them. You could also collect water off of paved surfaces. Mm-hmm. If they happen to flow onto your landscape. Often they're designed to flow off to the street.
Right. Now another thing we want to think about is what happens to extra water. Sometimes we can't capture it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so on the landscape, if you have a really flat property, you may be out of luck for putting in a rain garden, but if it slopes just even slightly, then you have the possibility of trapping it, holding it back with a berm, but you want to think about where the water is going to go afterwards. So, is there a place where the water will naturally flow and not cause a problem?
Okay. Once we've selected a site, what about the size of our rain garden? How do we go about determining how big it needs to be?
Well, a rule of thumb is about 5% of the area that it drains, so you could calculate the part of your roof that's draining and figure out, at least 5% of the area of that is what could be beneficial. Mm-hmm. But really, whatever fits your landscape, if it's smaller than 5%, that's fine. If you have clay soils that drain more slowly, then a little bit bigger is just fine.
Mm-hmm. We can spread that water out.
Exactly.
Over a
have a
wider
shallower depth with a broader area.
Okay. Well, let's take a look at this site. We have some roof drainage off of the house, and actually we're in a situation where the hard surfaces actually drain into the landscape, which is good, and a little bit of slope coming out. We do already have a river birch here. What can we consider? I think there's a few options here when we're designing this.
Yes, well, when we first looked at this property, we looked at the far side of the house where it was quite flat and it really wasn't quite adequate for it's a very big rain garden. So this site was more suitable because it has a greater slope, and there's actually enough slope here to even put in a couple of pools.
Okay.
So you know, you can imagine you know, one here holding it back for the birch, and then there's a little steeper slope here, and you could have another section of a rain garden here.
So we're going to have kind of two tiers, and the top will overflow a little bit into the bottom. Well, let's lay this out.
Okay.
Well, Kevin, back here we have certainly a couple of different options with the rain garden. What are some of the decisions that we need to make?
Well, right here, there's certainly a good depth where you could have a rain garden just between the swale here and in front of the tree. So the question really would be, do you want to have just one rain garden with with one pool, or do you want to include the tree? And this birch would certainly be happy with a little bit of extra water.
Absolutely.
So we talked to the homeowner, and they were happy with that option. So we thought if we put a second berm in, we could trap up a little bit of water for that tree and then have it tear down to this area for a bigger, deeper pool.
And of course, some of the considerations in that is how much area you want in turf and how much you want in the garden itself. And here the homeowner was happy to have less turf to mow, so the big garden worked out really well.
Yes.
Well, our next step is to remove this turf so we can build the rain garden. There's certainly a few different options. We could use a turf cutter, we could hand dig it out, and perhaps along the edge here some herbicide. You know, I try to limit the herbicide, but there's a lot of gravel in there. So I'm looking forward to having you back to help us with the installation process.
Thanks, I'm looking forward to it too.